And this is the another day for the EDMCS application, and our topic is working with application. So this is going to be a live webinar, and let's see what we are going to do in the what we are going to work in the applications of the EDMCS application. Okay, so let's start. So as you know, we have discussed about what is EDMCS and what are the major components of EDMCS. So you will be more like familiar about what are application, what is views, and what is hierarchy set, what are node set, and what are properties. Okay, so these things we have already discussed in our previous sessions, and today we are going to work upon the applications and how we can register the application, and how we will maintain the metadata, and how we can create the dimensions of the applications. Okay, so let's begin, and let's begin with the slides. Okay, so first we will create a sample application, and the sample application, we mean that you use Oracle EDMCS application to govern an external applications enterprise data. So with the sample application, or the application which we create, like EDMCS already have some predefined application which we can register, such as FCCS, PBCS, and some other applications also. Okay, so suppose I register a sample application, and let's say it is FCCS. Okay, and okay, excuse me, and all work on data involves and application viewpoints and related data objects. So what we just whatever dimension we have in our application. Okay, so that application will have the dimension, and for particular application, the EDMCS application automatically creates one view for that, and under that view we have the particular dimension that is called the viewpoint. Okay, and then we understand the types of application. So you, as I told you, that EDMCS application have various applications that are precedent, and through which we can create some type of sort of applications. And EDMCS basically have all the Oracle major application and all the application to maintain the metadata for that. Okay, so Oracle EDMCS provide application type for commonly used external application. These application type enforce conformity to external application while requiring minimal configuration. For example, the planning application type automatically define the properties required by the dimensions. So when we create one application using this sample application page or the new application page, we can get many application by which by setting a connection with them, we can create an application. And when we create the application, the EDMCS automatically inherent all the properties which the dimension or the application have for the particular dimension. Okay, then we have understanding register application. So an application's register define the application dimension as well as the dimensions property. So as I just told you, that when we register application, we have all the dimensions. Okay, and we have all the dimensions, and for particular dimension, when we use the application, all the properties of the dimension will come in the viewpoints. Okay, the registration process create the following items: the application default view, you can see here, and it comes with a default view and a viewpoint and related data objects for such register application. So in basic manner, what is we are trying to say that when we create an application, so we got the application, and then we got a default view for that, and for the particular view we got a viewpoint, and under the viewpoint we have various data objects that we have the node type, we have the hierarchy set, we have the node sets. Okay, and creating a submel application, the viewpoints and data object created by the registration process and should created by the registration process are bound to dimension. When you import data, the data is contained by the viewpoint bound to the dimension, and when you export, the bound viewpoint data is exported. So by bound we mean that when particular dimension is when we register a dimension and in the EDMCS application, and when we register, it is bound by various data objects. Okay, and with the data object you can see in the screen also, and the data object we can see in the viewpoints. Okay, so viewpoints basically depict as the dimension, and you can see here with the dimension 2, it is like coming in the register application, and it is bound with the data objects, and in the default view we have the viewpoint 2. Okay, and similarly we can create n numbers of dimensions. Each of the external applications dimension is bound to a dimension in the register application. Okay, understanding dimensions. So as you know, in the in the PVCS and in the FCCS, in the EPVCS, we have dimensions, and to create a dimension in the EDMCS, a register application contains one or more dimensions. A registered dimension represents a dimension, segment values, or data or other data domain in an external application. A dimension is bound to a viewpoint. So every dimension is bound to a viewpoint. When you import data, the data is contained by the bound viewpoint, and when you export, the bound viewpoint data is exported. So as you can see here, we have the binding status as bound, and the viewpoint, this is account dimension we are seeing in the viewpoints, and the application you can see the name and the node status account, and this is the binding status. Okay, then we have the, suppose we open an application, and when we inspect the application, inspect the dimension, you can say. So first we see the general tab, and then we have various tabs also, so we will discuss that. So first, in general, we can have various name and description, all the things, and then we have definition tab, under which you can see the bindings, and you can see the node types and all the things. Okay, and then we have mapping. So mapping is we can define a mapping key to that. Okay, and then we have permissions. So in permissions, we can set the user and groups for the particular permission to the application. So who can be the owner and to whom we want to make the owner and all the things. And then we have the policies. So under policies, we have configure and approval policy for the dimension. So basically, suppose if I want to make some changes in the particular application in the metadata, so I want to configure an approval policy for the dimension. So I want a particular user of the approval groups. So without the approval of the particular user of the group, we cannot make the changes. So for example, if we have some user, that is user 1, and the particular user has made some changes, and he might be adding some node, or he might be adding some child node or anything. He is just making some making some changes in the metadata. So we have an approval group for that, and we have the parallel or serial type of approval. So with that approval group, the approval group will pass the changes. He can also reject the changes, or that group can approve the changes. Okay, then we have understanding modify application. So you can modify the dimension of other setting of register application. The modification you make depend upon the application type. You can add, remove, or update dimension or application settings. So basically they are trying to say that we can make the furthermore modification. And how we can do that? We just have to we can go to inspect, or we can go to modify registration, and within that, the modify registration and inspect, we can have further more option to add or remove the dimension, or we can update the dimension settings and some application settings as well. But to do the major changes, we have to click on a modify registration. Then we can only make some big changes. And within inspect we have some limited sort of modification options available. Okay, and then we have understanding application and sharing data. So how we can share the data across the application and what are the things. So let's see. So typically you use Oracle EDMCS to govern the enterprise data for multiple external application. So for example, we are using it for PBCS, or there's various other applications like general ledger or consolidation application like FCCS. So to manage let's say to manage the entity node used to like we have in FCCS. So for each external application, we have to register the application, and the application automatically creates a view, and in the view create one viewpoint for each application. So dimension containing data to be shared, each viewpoint must use a node side bound to the application entity dimension. So basically we have the binding the status is very much mandatory that it should be bound like. Okay, so to make the all the import and export of data metadata, we must ensure that all the binding status is set to bound. Okay, and then we have understanding application and sharing data. So suppose a view is work area that we have a view. So suppose I want two applications. That one is my source application, and one is my target application. Suppose there is one enterprise or the organization who is using PBCS as well as they are using FCCS. So, excuse me, FCCS is just a financial consolidation and close application, and planning and budgeting is this planning application is just a PBCS application. So suppose I want that whatever changes are made in the PBCS application, I want to reflect that in FCCS application. So first we have to register two applications. That one is planning application and then the FCCS application. And for every application, EDMCS automatically create the view for that. But like to make the changes within the two applications, suppose planning is the source application, and whatever changes in the metadata of the planning we want to reflect in the FCCS application. So we will create a master view for that. So in that master view we will take the suppose we have the entity dimension in which we are going to make the changes. So in the master view we will take the dimension of both the application entity from planning and entity from the FCCS application, and we will set the node type converter in the particular master view for the particular application, and then we can make the further changes. So it will all automatically like streamline. Either we can manually make the changes, or we have the one type of data synchronization that is based on subscription. Okay, so in the screen you can see that we are planning an FCCS entity shared view, that is master view. You can say, in other words, we have general tab, we have definition tab, we have permission tab. So in general we have just various name and description of all the things, and in definition tab we will define the viewpoints. So in viewpoints we have to define like what are the dimension we are taking from the particular source application and the target application. Okay, and then we have understanding application and sharing data. So like as I just told you, they are just creating one dimension for the viewpoint, and they are creating one for the planning application and one for the FCCS application. Okay, so then we have to define the node set for the particular dimension which we are just creating, and basically we are defining the viewpoint. So in the viewpoint we are defining the node set, that is entity. Okay, and you can see here, suppose we are like in the planning and budgeting and in the consolidation. So we are like taking the entities dimension, and we are bound with the node type, hierarchy set, and the node set, and we have the default view for that and the bound viewpoint. And then we have the application, that is FCCS. For that we are doing the same thing, and we are making a master view for both the applications. Okay, then we are just learning what is inspecting application. So after you register an application, you can inspect it and add its settings. Okay, and how we can do that? You just have to go to inspect, and whatever settings, whatever addition you want to make, like whatever modification you want to make, you can do that. So suppose you can see in the screen, we are selecting planning and budgeting application, and with the action tab, we have the three dots, and we can click on the inspect. And when we click the click on the inspect, we have general, definition, connection, and registration, permission, policies. These tabs we will get. So in general, again, we have the name, description, status, and application type, of course, and we have the default view, that is cost center, redesign. You can have various other views. Okay, so when we go to inspect, you can see we have the connection. So in connection, we can test our connection, if our connection is successful or not. So either ways, we can change the password, if we can change the username to establish the correct connection. Sometimes we in regular cases, our instance password gets changed, or any other changes are done, so that in that case we can set the connection, we can test the connection. So connection is basically important to export and import the metadata between the EDMCS and the external application, and we can push the changes with that. Okay, and then we have the registration. So when we register application, we have to define, suppose we are in planning application, so the main thing is we have to define the queue, we have the application settings, we have the configuration settings, and we have to define the dimensions and all the things we have to do. And in the lower bottom of the slide, you can see we have the permissions, and in permissions we have to whom we are going to give the owner permission and the data manager permission. So in this slide, we have given to the super user group and interactive user. Okay, so yeah, this is same. You must have to owner permission of a specific application to assign or remove the permission for other groups or users. Application permission are assigned to one application at a time. If you inadvertently remove application and permission for yourself, contact a user with the owner permission or a service administrator to reassign your permissions. So basically, we can go to edit, and we can remove the particular permission, and we can add any permission according to our need to particular group or user. Okay, and this is an important thing that we have to understand the binding rules. So with the binding rules, basically we can make the import and export of the data, and without that we cannot set the rules for the importing and exporting and all the things. So suppose binding rules ensure that the user cannot make changes that would prevent the application data from being imported or exported. So that I just said to explain that we have to ensure that the binding status rule is correct, and without that we cannot make any import or export of metadata between the application. And in other words, binding rule ensure that a registered application conforms to the external applications requirements. So basically, binding status allow us to allow us to make the changes, and we can make the import and export of the external applications requirements. So binding rules vary by application type. Yes, because every application have different types of components and all the things. So binding rules are enforced on the viewpoint and related data object that are bound to a dimension. So in this photo, you can see we have bindings. So for the particular dimension, we have a viewpoint, and for every viewpoint we have node set, we have hierarchy set, we have node types and all the things. So a dimension is bound to a viewpoint is the only viewpoint that can be exported to the external application. Okay, so when you register an application in Oracle EDMCS, when we register application, the bound viewpoint and the related data chain object, these are the data chain objects. You must have been known that. Okay, and the bound data object store and display the managed, imported and exported data. So the bound data object is store and display. So it will store and display the managed, import and exported data. And yeah, then we have the understanding binding rule. Then we have the next we have is binding rules are enforced when user perform the following task. So updating a binding data object. If a change would violate a binding rule, then Oracle EDMCS prevent the change from being made. So if there is any violation of binding rule, then it will prevent the change to be being made. And when we do the updation, the viewpoint bound to a dimension. So updating a viewpoint bound to a dimension, and you can see that further that you can see the binding status, that one is bound and one is node set bound. Okay, so when we open the viewpoint is used in a binding, and when the status is bound, the viewpoint is used in a binding, and in the node set is used by the bound viewpoint. So in the viewpoint, it have all the three things, that node set, hierarchy set, and node type. So these all together are bound. So likewise, I've shown in the previous slide that this is the viewpoint and it is bound by these three things, and all together it is called as the data chain object, data chain. Okay, so all four of them will be bound, and if the node set bound, if it is node set bound, then the viewpoint is not used in a binding, but that contains a node set that has a binding status of bound, and these three will not be applicable that time. Okay, then we are here to understand the binding rules. That suppose we are in planning, budgeting in cloud application, and we have the account dimension. As you know, we have various dimension in the planning and budgeting application. So application import or export, to when we do the import export, so we have the account dimension in the EDMCS application itself, and we have account viewpoint, and the account viewpoint we have the node set, we have the hierarchy set, and we have the account node type. Okay, so when this is not bound, when the external application dimension is not bound with the EDMCS application viewpoint or the account dimension, then like we have in this case, this is unbound status. So alternative structures might have been used, or alternative node set have been used, or anything alternative other than the account other than this, which is initially created by the application, then this will make us as unbound, make the binding status as unbound. Okay, so creating a sample application. In planning application, dimension can be bound only to a single viewpoint. And one more thing, we are just going to make one sample application, and that will be FCC's application. So you will be more clear about how we can register one application. So in planning application, dimension can be bound only to a single viewpoint, and in this example, the account dimension, this is the previous example it is talking about. So the account dimension is bound to the account viewpoint. You can see that it is bound to the account viewpoint, and while the alternative structure viewpoint is unbound. So other than the account viewpoint, if you have alternative structure of viewpoint, it is unbound in status. And since the data is imported and exported only to the bound viewpoints, import and export operation will not affect the alternative structure viewpoint. So basically they are trying to say that we have two types of viewpoints. One is account viewpoint, and one we have the alternative structure viewpoint. So with this bind, we can make the import and export, but with the unbound we cannot do the import and export. But whatever changes are made in this structure, it will not harm in the external application. Okay, and the account binding is between the account dimension and the viewpoint in the Oracle EDMCS. The binding control, the import and export, all the things are same which we had just discussed. The account dimension is the external dimension, as well as enforcing binding rule within the Oracle EDMCS. All data or chain object contained within the account viewpoint are also bound to the account dimension. Okay, so these are all the same things which we have just read. So binding rules for all the application type. So bound object and binding rules. So suppose we are in the viewpoint, a property required by the binding cannot be hidden or read only. The viewpoint cannot be archived. So viewpoint cannot be archived. And node set, if the binding is specified, the nodes are a hierarchy, the node set cannot specify the node are a list. And if the binding specify the nodes are a list, the node set cannot specify the nodes are hierarchy. And suppose if the binding specify the nodes as hierarchy, so we cannot cannot set if it is already hierarchy, we cannot set it to list and vice versa. Okay, and node set cannot be archived. Similarly with the hierarchy set, if binding does not allow shared nodes, the hierarchy set cannot be configured to allow, like if we do not allow the shared nodes, as you know we have shared nodes that they can be present in the different parent but within the same viewpoint but with us different parents. And the hierarchy set cannot be archived, and node type cannot be also archived. Okay, then we have importing dimension. So as you know, we have to make one request, and then we can with the load item request we can import all the metadata from the file. That can be CSV file. You can import data from external application into Oracle Enterprise Data Management Cloud, which populates node properties and hierarchical relationship in the dimension register bound chain, bound data chain. Okay, so I guess we have done with the slides, and let's move on to application, EDMCS application, and register one FCC's application. Okay, so we will get a more clear picture about how we can register the applications. So let me go to first home page, and we have to go to application. You can see that. Okay, and we have this option as register, so we have to click on that, and you can see that we have various applications to choose as the application type, and we are going to register financial consolidation and close, that is FCC's application. So I will choose that, and for any custom application, so on that we have to use the universal option. And suppose we are registering planning application, so we have to choose accordingly. You can see, and we have various other Oracle products also. Okay, so I'm choosing financial consolidation close, and first we have to give a name. So I will give the name as FCCs_app. Okay, description is optional. Okay, click on next, and then we have to establish the connection. So for the connections we have to give the URL and all the things. So, and you can have multiple connections as well. So I will click on add, and I will name the connection as FCC as one, and then we have connection description. So it is again optional, and then we have to give the instance location. So I will quickly provide the instance location. I have one instance. This is sort of a demo instance we have, and we have to take it till .com. Okay, and then we have the username. So username is that. Okay, then we have to provide the password. Okay, and if you want to set this primary connection, it is already set, and click on next. So we have made one connection, and we can, as I told you, we can have many other connections as well. So I don't want to make any other connection, so I will click on next, and you can see the summary here. And as soon as we click on the create, then we can do the application settings. So all are correct, so I'm just clicking on the create icon. Okay, and here we have the application setting. You can see, so it is asking that is the application is multi-currency or not. So yes, it is in my case, and we have to provide the currency values as well. So let's say we have USD, let's say we have Canadian, also Canadian dollar, let's say we have GBP. Okay, so these three currency I'm particularly using in this case, for this particular session. And it is asking to what is the main currency you're using. So we are using USD as the main currency. So is our application intercompany enabled? Yes, it is. And it is multi-gap enabled? Yes, it is. And is it hybrid mode enabled? So I am taking yes. And it is asking for the alias table. So we have default as an alias table in which we will use in this. Okay, and if we have various additional smart lists, we can provide. So smart list is just when you open the FCSS application. Let me see if it is open. Yes, it is open. So when you go to navigator, you can see we have the option as smart list. So in the smart list, we can provide whatever smart list is present. We can just give the smart list here, there. We can give here, but I am not going to give any smart list here. I'll click on next, and then we can add dimensions. So let's say what dimension we can add. Let's go to FCSS application. Let's add account and entity dimension for now. So let's open dimension. So we are in FCSS application currently, and you can see we are going to add account dimension, plus we are going to also add the entity dimension. So how we can do that, let's see. So we have to click on add, then it's asking for the dimension name. Let's give it as account, and yeah, it is asking for dimension type, that is account. You can have various other dimensions as well, and it is asking for allow shared notes, and description is optional. So I am taking it. Okay, and it is asking for any attribute. So basically, like for dense dimension, basically we can add, or we don't need to add any attributes. So if you want to, you can add, but I am not adding. Then I'm clicking next, then again next. Okay, one more thing, we are also adding the entity dimension. So I will click on add again and give the name as entity. Then we have the description, and I will choose account type, sorry, dimension type, and we have the allowed shared nodes. Okay, then we have, again it is asking that that attribute dimension for the entity dimension. So I'm not selecting any attribute for now, but you can also do that. Suppose you want to add any attribute like and one more thing, for the entity dimension, we don't need to create attribute for the intercompany entities. It is already predefined in the EDMCS application, so we do not need that. Okay, we do not need to create that. And for the entity dimension, what else we can create is that okay, we can give as locations. So attribute name, we can give the location, and location we can use as only, let's say, east or west. So between these two we can choose, and click on next, and next again, and next again. So here you will see the particular summary for the FCSS application. We have application settings, all the configuration settings we have made. We have dimensions, we are adding 2 dimensions here, and we have an attribute. And if you click on apply, it will give a pop-up that our data chain object has been created successfully. Okay, so let's see what application we have created. We have created FCSS_app. Let's find it. So yes, here it is. So this is the application which we have created, and under this under this action we have the 3 dots, so by which we can inspect, we can modify the registration, we have the refresh index, we have import export, and we have extract, and we have load. So let's click on inspect. So when you create on inspect, we have the general tab, and we have dimensions, we have connection, we have registration, which we have just also seen in the slides. We have constraints. So if in constraints, okay, we will come to that later. So in general tab, we have all the basic summary of what is the name of the application, and we can also edit that. Okay, and status is active for now. We have description, and we have application type, which is showing here. Okay, let's click on save. We have a blackout period as well, and we can enable it. Currently it is off. And you can see the history, who is the creator and who is the modifier, who is modified for that. Okay, and then we have dimension. So you can see here we have added 2 dimensions here, that is, one is entity, but that one is account, and second one is entity. and we have the bound viewpoints as account and entity. Okay, then we have connection. Let's test the connection, and if any error we got, we can also go to edit and change the parameters here. Okay, so connection is successful, so we do not need to make any changes. And then we have registration, so it is again showing all the summary. Then we have constant. So suppose like we have in the SQL, we can define the constant that the particular thing should not be null or anything, so we can do that. Then we have permission. So in permission, as I told you, that we can give the user and group, we can assign the user and group here, and we can give the data access. And with the data access, we can also, like if I want to remove this, so I can remove that admin. Okay, but I'm not going to remove that. I will click on save, and we can also add other people also. With the user we can add, and we can also add the group. Okay, let's save it. Then we have the policies here. So policies is basically when we, like as I told you, that we have when there is one user who is going to make some changes in the metadata or within any viewpoint, and we want to like have an approval for that. So we can assign any approval group for that, or any particular user for that. Okay, for the approval policies we can make. So let me just close it. And with the modify registration, you can modify the registration if you want to like make any changes in that, so you can do that. Let me just close it. Okay, and with this filter tab, you can see the archived applications also. If you want to make any application as archived, like suppose, let me open my application and go to inspect, go to edit, and if I want to make it as a draft or archive, I can do that. Suppose I made it as archived. Let's save it. Okay, and when we click on show archived, so now all the archived application will be seen here. Okay, so again I will go to inspect and make the status back to active. Okay, so for the let's say we have just seen in the slide that for every application, EDMCS automatically creates a view for that. So let's see what view it is. It has been created by itself. So this is the FCCS application. We did not created this view, and under this view, automatically all the dimension, all the viewpoint EDMCS created. So for the account dimension, we already had the particular viewpoint as account, and for the entity we already have that. So when you hover the cursor on the entity, you can see that it is showing the viewpoint as entity. We have the application name, we have the dimension name as well, we have the bound as binding status, that is bound. So we can make the import export. But one more thing, so like how we can get the metadata within this viewpoints. So to get the metadata, so I will like to show you practically. I will import the metadata for the entity dimension or the entity viewpoint. So how we can do that? So first we have to go to FCCS application, and we are going to go to overview. When we go to overview, we have to go to dimensions, and let's say we are going to import the metadata for the entity dimension in the EDMCS. So I will open the entity dimension. Let's see. Okay, we have it here. So I will click on export from the FCCS application. So this pop-up will come here, and I will click on create, and I will click on location as outbox, and then I will click on entity, and I will create select a save as job, and I will have to give one name for the job. So let's say I should give the name as EDMCS entity, and the same we will find in the EDMCS application. Let's save it. Okay, so job has been saved. Now we have to close it. So now the job will appear, and we have to click on submit, so it will get submit, and we can see the particular job in the EDMCS application. So let's again go to the home page and go to applications. Let's find our application, and then in the action tab we have to click on import. So I will click on it, and we are importing the entity dimension metadata, so we are choosing that, and our input source is connection, and as soon as you click on it, you can get the file name as well, that is EDMCS_entity. It will be in zip format, and the mode is replace, or whatever mode you want to select, that you can select that. I'm just choosing replace for now, and summary is, you can see the summary for the dimension and then or the viewpoint. Let's click on import. Okay, we have made the location as the attribute in the entity dimension. That is why it is, because we do not have the location as the attribute in the FCC application, so that is why it is showing an error. So for that, let's import for the account, or we can also modify the registration. So to do that, click on modify registration, and click on next, click on entity, and click on next, and we will delete this location because we do not have this attribute in the particular FCC application. So that is why we're getting the error. Let's click on apply again. Okay, so it is now created. Again we have to go to import, and we will do the same thing. Okay, again we click on connection, and let's hope we are getting the metadata. Yeah, we got the metadata correctly. We have successfully imported the metadata. Let's close it and see in the views. We have to go to the views, and we will see the metadata in the viewpoint. So we have to go to view, and I will open the FCC application. So in the entity dimension, you can see now we are getting the metadata which was in the FCC application. And to make you cross check with that, we can also open dimension as well in the FCC application at the same time. So I will open the dimension. So with just simple connection, we can easily import the metadata, and as well as we can export the metadata. So you can see here we got the same, if I make you in side by side with both the tabs. Okay, so you can see here we have at the left hand side we have the EDMCS application, and at the right hand side we have the FCCS application. And you can see in the entity viewpoint we have all the metadata which is from the entity dimension, and the same metadata is present in the the dimension of FCCS application. So let me just expand this and drill it down through this hierarchy, and let's see we are getting the same sort of accounts or members or not. So in EDMCS we called it as nodes, and in FCCS it is called as member. So yeah, we are getting all the things the same, you can see here. Okay, let me just maximize it. Okay, and plus you can see EDMCS is automatically taking all the properties which were in the FCCS application. It is now taking all the properties by itself because we have used a predefined application type. So we don't have to manually add all the properties. Okay, and we can also click on side by side view, but we will cover that in later videos that we will take at one side we will take the source application, and and the other side we will take the target application, and we will do the data synchronization, and we will like send the data between the application. So for that we have to define node type converters. So we will discuss in our later sessions. So this was it, I guess, for the particular session. And you can see we got the entity dimension, entity viewpoint, and for the account we do not have imported any sort of metadata, so that's why we are not getting it. Okay, so one more thing we can do, that is that we can also import the metadata for the account dimension. So again we go to an overview, so we will get a big picture of that, how we can import the metadata for various dimensions. So again I will go to dimension, and okay, I will have to click on export. I will click on create, and in the outbox I will select account, then save as job. I will name it as ACC underscore EDMCS, save as job. Okay, it is saved. Let's close it, and we have to submit the job, particular job. Okay, it is submitted successfully. Let's again go to the application, and you can also go to the application from this navigator tab, and then we have to go to import, and let's go to account, and we have to go to connection, and you can see we got the file name. Let's click on import. Okay, so import is completed. Let's quickly go to the views and open the viewpoint, account viewpoint. Okay, and now we are getting all the nodes from the all the members from the account dimension, and you can see all the nodes which are present, and we can have the balance sheet as well, and we have all the properties which are coming in the EDMCS application. Okay, and the viewpoint part we have already discussed in our previous session. You can refer that. We had the live webinar for that also. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this and attending this session. And if you have any queries and all things, you can visit bispsolutions.com, and stay tuned for more interesting session on the EDMCS. We will discuss the custom application as well, and we will register planning application, and we will do various things like we will synchronize the data, and we will run various approval conditions or approval policy we will set, and many other things we will do in here. Okay, so thank you, and see you again.